Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our July Product Connect with, of course, none other than our founder and CEO, David Schmidt. We are here today talking even more about X₂O, and specifically today we are talking about hydrogen. So I'm super interested to learn more about this topic. I will confess it's not something that I'm overly familiar with. So as usual, my questions will come from a place of a little bit of naivete, I suppose. But what I love about these product connects and the feedback that I keep getting is just how amazing you are, David, at taking a topic that might feel complex to the non-science brainy people in the crowd like me, and making it understandable. So I know I've got my X₂O here as we are recording, and I will be sipping throughout, and it looks like you do too, of course. So excited to get started today just talking more about hydrogen. So I think you have some interesting things to go through with everybody this morning.
I've got some great surprises. Let me go ahead and share screen so we can go through some of those things.
Awesome.
Before we get to the periodic table, here's a fun one that was open up. As you know, Janine, we were just recording the next segments, the next two chapters of The World's Oldest Intern. And one of the things that was really enjoyable was that I got to call Bill Shatner in my office and reprimand him as part of the storyline that we had for part 2 and 3. And we had a lot of fun with it. And of course, this is a lobster on my desk that represents the foundations of X₂O. X₂O was the light emissions from X₂O were created based off of the light emissions found in lobsters that keep lobsters immortal. Lobsters live to be over 130 years old and they never age in the process. The only reason why they die is that they're eaten by a predator, they get sick, or they grow so big they can't grow any further. But they're truly amazing. And if it weren't for the humble lobster, we would not have our X₂O water machine. So we're grateful for that. But that's not really the reason why we wanted to have this here. I have been investigating hydrogen for a very, very long time, since the 1990s, and even actually a little bit earlier than that. Um, but when I was doing work for the US Navy, looking at new methods of generating power, new types of oxygen supplies, one of the technologies that I invented, there was actually a whole platform of technologies, and it was based around novel methods of making and using hydrogen. And so the subject of what hydrogen is, how to make it, and how to use it properly, something that I've studied for a long time, and I want to share some of that with everyone today, how we can apply hydrogen to the body in a novel way in our X₂O machine for improving health. So
I love that. And
let's
I'm actually so glad you started with that, David, because I feel like hydrogen is something that most people, including me, have been hearing about more recently. So I was actually super curious about how long it's been studied. And I certainly didn't know that you've been personally studying it for that long. So that is, I love that you started there kind of with that foundation because we're inundated with information all the time and even on social media, and it's like you should be doing this and you should be doing that and you should be taking this and you should have that supplement, and it's like, well, how new is this? How novel is this? How long has this been around? How long has it been studied? I'm always curious about that because it feels like the longer something's been studied, generally speaking, the more we know about it, right?
Yeah, actually, that is a surprisingly difficult question to answer. And I'm going to
Oh,
tell you why. One of the researchers in hydrogen was Patrick Flanagan. And I had the privilege of meeting Patrick many, many years ago, back around 2005 or so, when LifeWave was in its startup phase. Patrick was an absolutely brilliant scientist. He had been in a government think tank. He had created a language for communicating with dolphins, amongst many, many other things.
Wow.
But he had about a 30-word vocabulary for dolphins. Um,
That is so
and
cool.
yeah, he was
Random, but
quite
cool.
some he was quite something. But uh, one of his passions was hydrogen, and trying to figure out why people in the Hunza Valley lived as long as they did. And he came to the conclusion that there were several conclusions that he came to, but one of them was that there were novel silica compounds in the water that they were drinking, and caged, if you will, within the silica was hydrogen. So he determined, well, hydrogen is a very simple, very powerful antioxidant. So it must be the hydrogen that is responsible for their long life. Um, he was correct in that hydrogen's a very powerful antioxidant, but he was not correct in that being the entire secret of why they have such a long lifespan there. So he got it partially correct.
Okay.
But one of the things Patrick Flanagan had said to me was that he did a study of an ancient Indian symbol. Now, this goes back, I don't know how long, maybe thousands of years, called the Sri Yantra. And it's nested triangles. There are all these triangles nested within one another. And if you saw the diagram, you would immediately recognize it. And he did a mathematical analysis of this symbol, and he determined that it was the mathematics of the Sri Yantra were the same as the hydrogen atom, so that it literally represented hydrogen.
That is fascinating.
He also said that hydrogen, it was said that the Sri Yantra, if you studied it, that you would understand the secrets of the universe. Now, I have another friend who's a physicist, and what he tells me is that he believes that hydrogen is not matter, that helium is actually the first element in the periodic table, and that hydrogen exists between our space and beyond. And what's interesting about this is I once knew a scientist from um, Georgia Tech. And what he said to me is they did an experiment where they took a vacuum chamber. Of course, there's not supposed to be anything inside a vacuum chamber, but we know that's not true today. And they put in a mass spectrometer, and they measured hydrogen atoms spontaneously appearing and disappearing. So it seems like hydrogen comes in from somewhere, a realm beyond ours, a dimension beyond ours, and comes into our space. And it gives a little credence to how uh, everything was eventually created in our universe. Matter came from somewhere else in the form of hydrogen. And because of I'm getting off track, because of the
That's
heat
okay.
and the
It's super
other
interesting.
elements were formed. So let's not go down the Big Bang theory here. But in any case, hydrogen is extraordinarily special. It may not be real matter. It may be a doorway between our universe, our dimension, and the next. And it's got some extraordinarily novel properties. And as a matter of fact, even the name hydrogen in Greek means bearer of water. So it was even known that hydrogen gives birth to water when you burn it.
Wow. All of this is making me wish I either paid better attention or could recall high school chemistry and physics better.
Well, I suppose the question is, how do we use all of this to help us?
Yes.
We're looking at, let's come back to the periodic table. And we've already been through this a little bit. Hydrogen, of course, is the first element. It's the lightest element. And there it is on the periodic table. Very interesting that it is in this list that includes lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, These are actually all metals. And one thing that people don't know about hydrogen is that it does have a metallic state. And this was, I think, originally utilized by the US government to have a special type of engine that could run off of metallic hydrogen, would be used as a novel type of rocket. I think they referred to it originally as slush hydrogen. But hydrogen actually has a metallic state. And knowing that allowed me to create the X₂O machine. I had previously been taking metals like aluminum, copper, bismuth, tin, and been combining them with oxygen to form new and novel metal oxides. So because hydrogen does have a metallic state, by altering the bond between hydrogen and oxygen, you can get it to store light, and you can trap light in the dipole structure of water. So that's just a little fun fact on hydrogen. Okay, so hydrogen, people think of it as a source of energy, and that's really not entirely true. We should be using hydrogen for energy because when you burn it, it creates water, so it's completely clean. However, hydrogen more properly is a carrier of energy. So in other words, it requires energy to make hydrogen. If you're going to take water and you're going to split it in the hydrogen and oxygen, that takes energy. One of the setups that I saw for this that works beautifully back in the 1990s was a bus company called Sunline Transit in Palm Desert, California. And what they did was they took solar panels out in the desert and they used the solar panels to drive electrolyzers. They made hydrogen, they vented the oxygen to the atmosphere, they filled carbon nanotube and carbon fiber high pressure containers with the hydrogen, and that's what was powering their buses that were driving around Palm Springs and Palm Desert. So completely renewable energy, no CO2 emissions, completely green for the environment, and this was done in the 1990s.
Wow.
Yeah, I met the CEO of the company back then, and I was incredibly impressed that they just took the initiative and they did it themselves. But it's important
What
because
happened?
hydrogen actually isn't a source of energy. It carries energy. So you could say that those Sunline Transit buses were powered by the sun.
That is really cool. But that technology must not have taken off, or I feel like it would be everywhere now.
There are unfortunately many, many examples of that, of technology that works incredibly well, but never got to market because other interests like the nuclear
Right.
industry and the petroleum industry prevailed. But I actually don't know exactly where that company is today. I haven't looked. Now, when we're going to talk about hydrogen, we're going to talk about something else called reactive oxygen species. So this is the positive, the negative. This is the yin and yang. The duality here, we have hydrogen on one side as an antioxidant, and on the other side, we have the reactive oxygen species. Now, these sound like the villain of the movie, but they actually are in our bodies for a very important purpose. We need reactive oxygen species actually to protect us. We'll use a few examples. Let's say when people fall and they get a cut and they have an open wound and they start bleeding, bacteria can get into the wound. So our bodies make reactive oxygen species. They make hydroxyl ions, hydrogen peroxide, ozone as a means to destroy that bacteria. Our bodies make reactive oxygen species to kill cancer cells, to kill viruses. Here's a reactive oxygen species here, H2O2, which is hydrogen peroxide. And antioxidants like superoxide dismutase, catalase, glutathione will act in a cycle to neutralize the hydrogen peroxide so it doesn't damage healthy tissue. And we can see that managing reactive oxygen species is absolutely essential when we want to have a long, healthy life. The process of metabolism, converting food over into energy, generates waste products such as reactive oxygen species. So we can think of antioxidants like hydrogen, like glutathione, as means to control this process. We don't want to shut down the process of making these oxidative molecules because they're beneficial when controlled. So it's like anything, we have to have this completely in balance in the body. Now, what I would encourage people to do is to take a look at what is available on the subject of hydrogen gas. And there's something that I want to be able to, something I want to point out here. When you're looking at literature and when you're looking at studies and looking at the therapeutic use of hydrogen in the human body, some of it is applied as a gas. So people literally have a nasotube where they inhale the hydrogen gas, or of course, you can put the hydrogen gas into water. Water has solubility to hydrogen, and then you drink it. So that's, of course, one of the things that's happening in X₂O. People are drinking the hydrogen gas. This is nothing unusual, by the way, in the sense that water has solubility to oxygen. So when we are drinking water, we're getting about 6 to 8 parts per million of oxygen in the water that we're drinking. So similarly, we're getting hydrogen now from X₂O in the water that we're drinking. So it's very important when you're looking at studies that you distinguish, are they talking about hydrogen gas as being inhaled, or are they talking about it getting it in water? But what I found interesting about this article, since it is in the National Library of Medicine, a landmark publication in Nature Medicine revealed that the antioxidant and cryoprotective effects of hydrogen gas in this model. So you're going to find consistently there is no denying that hydrogen acts like an antioxidant in the body. The benefits of that are what are debated, but it's not debated that it's an antioxidant, and that's important. Here's a study, a comprehensive review of molecular hydrogen as a novel nutrition therapy. So even in references now, they're looking at hydrogen as being a nutritional supplement. And that, of course, is great for us, that it's recognized as a nutritional antioxidant.
Right.
I also wanted to pull this up because we are not claiming that we're delivering hydrogen in an amount that can be used for treating disease. So let's use an example. We can look in the literature at vitamin C, and we have vitamin C and Celergize Morning, 200 milligrams. 200 milligrams, the vitamin C is low enough that it's acting as a nutritional supplement. Even 1 gram, 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C is a nutritional supplement. When we're getting into injecting vitamin C into the body, 10 grams, 50 grams of vitamin C, that has a different physiological effect on the body. It elevates interferon, actually will elevate hydrogen peroxide, and now this has a therapeutic medical effect. So medical doctors use these very, very high doses of vitamin C to treat cancer. But nutritionally, you would use vitamin C at 200 milligrams, 1,000 milligrams, just to help maintain your health. So this is the same distinction we're making here with hydrogen. We're not claiming it treats disease the way that we're using it in X₂O. We're claiming nutritional benefits.
Got it. I think that's a super important distinction, for our brand partners as they're having conversations around hydrogen, coming from X2O. So I'm glad that you touched on that.
Yeah, I would agree with you. It's we get people that get excited about our product and they're going out with great intentions, but they're missing that subtlety that the dosing in disease treatment is critical, and that's not what we're doing. Yeah.
No.
And here again is an article. I'm bringing this up because there are articles where people are saying, well, is hydrogen water a hoax? Is it real? Here's a study. Hydrogen acts as a therapeutic antioxidant by selectively reducing cytotoxic oxygen radicals. So again, when we're talking about the use of hydrogen as an antioxidant to help to balance out reactive oxygen species, here is a study showing that it has that effect. That's important. Here again, I wanted to, again, point to this study. This is not what we're doing. We're not applying it as inhalation in the treatment of disease. This is hydrogen water. And this would be a very common study that would come up if you were to Google search hydrogen water. You'll find a lot of articles that are saying, well, is it good? Is it not good? And the general conclusions are there are definitely studies which show the health benefits of hydrogen water. Most authors say they would like to see larger studies. They want to see long-term studies. They want to see studies with these large population crossovers. And I'm sure those things are going to come in time. But if we think of hydrogen, because it's such a small, the gas is just 2 hydrogen atoms, because it's so small, the benefit is that it can easily pass through the cell membrane and pass through the body. That's its biggest value, is being able to permeate every cell in the body and function as an antioxidant. So it's obviously going to have short-term and long-term benefits, but we probably don't know today all of the long-term health benefits of hydrogen. We know they exist, but there probably isn't a 10-year or 20-year study out there showing what that's going to be. So we want to be cautious relative to any claims that we make.
Right.
And then I brought up this article because it was interesting, and this refers to electrolyzed hydrogen water. And the way that we make the hydrogen in our system is through the use of magnesium. So there's magnesium that is in the second filter that we have in X₂O. The magnesium reacts with water to release hydrogen gas. And this refers to electrolysis as producing hydrogen. So I'm going to assume, when I read the article, the assumption I'm making is that they're electrolyzing water, producing hydrogen, and then bubbling that hydrogen through the water. So the net end effect is the same. We get hydrogen going through the water regardless of the source, but the concentration may or may not be different here.
Gotcha.
So that would be an overview on what hydrogen is, some of the benefits, some things to look out for in terms of claims, how it's being used, and of course, some anecdotal information on what happens when someone drinks X₂O, and what happens to their body within 10 minutes.
Right. So it sounds like it's important for the extra curious amongst us who are going to go out and do research to really be, I guess, thorough in what you're looking at. Make sure that you're distinguishing, how how the hydrogen was delivered to the body, gas versus it being in water. And it sounds like the science is really still evolving, even though, you started with telling us that you started looking at it in the 90s. There's people that have been looking at it for a really long time, but it sounds like there's still, more research to be done. But do you get the sense that it's something that a lot of people are kind of excited about right now? Like, do you think there's going to be more of that, more studies and more of that sort of meta data
No,
approach?
no question about it. One thing that I should mention about hydrogen that is incredibly excited when we think about that we're putting this into the body is that let's say petroleum-based fuels have roughly an energy content of 11,000 watt hours per kilo. Battery systems, on the other hand, like lithium ion, are down around 500 to 700 watt hours per kilo, somewhere around there. And so this is one of the reasons why you can't really go so far in an electric vehicle today as you could in a gas powered vehicle. There's other things. Electric motors are almost perfect in their efficiency, whereas car engines are about 17% efficient. So you have to balance this all out. Hydrogen, though, is 34,000 watt hours per kilo. So it has 3 times the amount of energy as gasoline. So that's exciting. We're putting something very, very powerful into the body. And actually the body makes hydrogen naturally. So what's exciting about it is we want to look at what effect does this have on gene expression when we're putting such a powerful energy source in the body? It acts like an antioxidant. So with something that powerful, its ability to scavenge free radicals must be pretty high. So I think we're still today just scratching the surface on what the implications are biologically for longevity.
Right. So, thinking about antioxidants, how is it different, in your opinion, from the ones that we're more familiar with, like vitamin C, vitamin E? Just
Yeah.
that it's that
So,
much more powerful, or are there other differences that you would point to?
oh, there's so many subtleties here to
Okay.
consider. So you would say,
Harder question than I thought.
let's take let's take a good example. One of my favorite antioxidants is astaxanthin. And astaxanthin is found in lobsters. And probably, I think my calculations would show that astaxanthin is capable of lengthening telomeres and causing, I think what you see in the literature is that it repairs damaged DNA. So I am certain that there is a link between the lobster's lifespan and astaxanthin because it's found in their shells, but it has nothing to do with its properties as an it has something to do with its properties as an antioxidant, but the light emissions off of astaxanthin are what make it special. But in the human body, astaxanthin does not occur, of course, naturally. It's not a naturally occurring antioxidant, and it's about 6,000 times more powerful than vitamin C. So we should be
Wow.
taking it. The issue, though, is there is a limit to where astaxanthin will go in the body. So you can't just say, well, I'm going to take astaxanthin and that's it. It almost be looking at like men should take lycopene because it has an affinity for the prostate. People should take lutein, powerful antioxidant for the eyes. These antioxidants have affinity for certain receptors in certain parts of the body. The beauty of hydrogen is that it goes everywhere. It's ubiquitous. We would say that the foundational antioxidants of the body, glutathione, superoxide dismutase, catalase, they're ubiquitous. We find them everywhere. So we want to keep those elevated throughout our life, especially glutathione. But hydrogen, one of the really attractive things about it, not only is it powerful, but it goes everywhere. So we would say that it would be a great complement to all these other antioxidants. I'd say one of the downsides of hydrogen is that it's short-lived. So definitely has its uses, but when it comes to antioxidants and nutrition, a holistic approach, I think, is best.
Gotcha. You mentioned, and it was something that I learned while I was looking at a few of these articles that you sent over, in preparation for this, that it's short-lived. So I assume that means it leaves the body fairly quickly. Does that impact the potential benefits, or does it do the job really fast and then get out? That's a
Yeah.
really simple way to
Yeah,
put
its benefits will be both short term and long term
it.
to a
Okay.
degree, and in this case, long term is all relative. So you could say short term, it'll work very quickly and produce an effect, and then the effect could last for quite a few hours after that. So you would have something similar with glutathione. Glutathione goes in and out of the body in about 1 hour, 45 minutes to an hour. The half life is 7 minutes. So glutathione gets used up quickly. The difference is that glutathione is made in the body, providing that it has the resources to do that. Now, uh, people go to the hospital, they get an IV of glutathione, and they do that to remove heavy metals, improve their health, and it has a benefit. So we could look at hydrogen as same. We could look at hydrogen as we would take it, it's going to improve our health. We can enjoy those benefits for the next couple of hours, and then we could take it again. So this is, I'd say, very consistent with the use of other antioxidants.
Okay, cool. I think this is an important question, and I hope I know the answer, but are there any known risks or side effects associated with hydrogen? Like, do we need to be careful, for example, how many glasses of X2O we drink in a day? Or, yeah,
Great
anything that
question.
we need to be worried about?
Uh, if if hydrogen is being inhaled, that's where I would have the concern.
Okay.
And with any nutrient, there's always a concern that you could take too much. So in nutrition, we would talk about vitamin A as a classic example. There's actually stories of people that went to the North Pole and they killed polar bears and they ate the liver of the polar bears and they died because the vitamin A content was so high that it became toxic in their bodies. So we know, for example, that if you take 50,000 IUs of vitamin A on a daily basis, after a few weeks, it's going to build up to toxic levels in the body. That's because it's fat soluble. Vitamin D is very similar, fat soluble. Hydrogen, though, the dose in water is so low, it's not something that we worry about building up a toxic effect. It's like you wouldn't worry about 200 milligrams or 1,000 milligrams a day of vitamin C for exactly the same reason.
Right. Got it. Okay. We're coming up on the hour. So, last question from me. Of all the different areas that are being studied around hydrogen and in your own research, what aspect of it excites you the most?
I would say what we're doing with our Thunderstrike drone and LifeWave power generation system.
Ah,
So
okay.
probably this is a good way to come full circle since we started on it. And I know you weren't aware of this when you asked the question, but
Nope.
I,
No idea where you're going, David.
yeah, yeah.
No, I
So
think I do.
of course, when you go through the welcome center, you see the mock-up, the Doug Drexler mock-up of our power generation
Very
system that
cool.
we're going to have. And for those people that are new, in the coming years, we expect to have a 20 kilowatt generator that will be completely clean for the environment. It exists today. Uh, many of our presidential brand partners last year, they won a trip to Denmark where they got to see this technology, touch it, feel it for themselves. But literally, you can put gasoline or diesel fuel into the generator, and what comes out is completely clean air. There's no carbon emissions. We even close the doors to the room. There's no smoke, no smell. And when you put your hand up to the exhaust, it's almost at room temperature, depending on if you're in Florida, of course, or you're in Denmark, very different room temperatures.
Very different
But
room temperature.
yeah, no. So what I'm excited about is that there are new ways that we can use hydrogen to power people's homes, power the economy, and do it where we're not polluting the environment. So I would say very loosely that the technology that we're working with on our Thunderstrike drones, which is making its way into a LifeWave power generation system, is a completely new way of using hydrogen. So I'm incredibly excited about that in the long term. But in the short term, I'm excited that we had X₂O today so people can improve the quality of their lives with this product.
That's amazing. Yes, we don't want to get too excited about home power generation just yet. It's a few years away, but in the meantime,
Yeah.
I just about finished this entire glass of water while we were chatting.
Same
Yours is
thing. I
probably getting
saved a
low
little
too.
bit to the end.
Um, and we'll be excited about what it's doing for our bodies. So thank you
Awesome.
once again for all of this information, for taking a pretty complex topic and, making it into something that makes sense for the non-sciencey people like me, and getting us excited about the benefits that X₂O can have for the people that we are already sharing that technology with in the United States, and that we will be able to share with in more countries around the world in the coming months. So thank you yet again, David. We so appreciate your time, and we hope you all have an amazing day out there. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.